Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Marcus. Marcus, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. How are you?
Good. Marcus, I'm excited to have you here. It's going to be a fun conversation. But before we dive in, Marcus, let's get to know you. Tell us what you love about content and marketing and maybe catch us up on your career.
Sure. So I've been in marketing and different aspects of marketing and different functions my entire career. Right now, I'm the VP of Marketing at News Store. So focused primarily on demand generation, which includes content. And that's the fuel for a lot of the bigger campaigns that we do for customer acquisition purposes and brand awareness. In addition to that, in my role, I do manage the business development team. So content being a fuel for that and having the BDR sit in marketing is probably a totally different podcast. But it actually has helped just in terms of our reach and what we're able to share and convey into the market, because I think everybody would agree, especially in a B2B environment in a SaaS company like ourselves, buyers are more educated. They're likely not picking up a phone or answering an email to take an inquiry about a solution that they're not in market for. So half of the battle for any marketing organization, but also for business development, is fundamentally shifted to how do we educate, how do we warm people up, how do we represent and share the message and positioning of a brand so that when they are ready to buy, they know exactly who to go for. So it kind of harkens back to this 95-5 rule, which is applicable really for any sort of aspect within marketing, certainly for advertising, which is, only 5% of your ICP or, sales addressable markets in market. The rest of them will be at some point, so for anybody that's unfamiliar with it, if you watch any live sporting event or, national TV, you get inundated with car commercials all the time. Well, you're making probably 3 or 4 maybe car purchases in your entire lifetime, but you're not gonna watch TV and not see a Toyota commercial, So they're there to stay top of mind, and that's very similar to what our task and job is, as a marketer in a competitive space and with a higher SaaS solution. That's certainly not inexpensive. We're not targeting SMBs. These are enterprise or mid-market retail brands that are looking to buy our software to enhance their in-store operations and all of that. So, how do we blend the right type of messages at the right time to the right segments? That's the $1 million question, quite literally.
Well, I love it, Marcus. I'm excited for this conversation. Really, we're going to dive into ABM, and you started talking about ABM already. How do we get in front of the right people? How do we have the message, the 95 and 5%? But really diving in, and I like to just make sure really high level, if no one knows what ABM is, that we kind of cover that. So to you, what's your definition of ABM and kind of how do you operate in that playbook?
Yeah, I think there's, it's a really good question because every company sort of, I should say every MarTech vendor that's selling their software defines it differently. For News Store, and generally the way that I interpret it is an account-based marketing means you're targeting an account. So you're not targeting one person at Nike, you're targeting the entire buying center within Nike. And that requires a number of different approaches to tailor to different personas. So as it relates to News Store, when we talk about ABM, we're not going after the decision maker and them alone. We're going after everybody in and around that buying group. So that encompasses all different aspects of, the different personas we target, whether it's operations, executive, e-commerce, you name it, particular to our company. And we ran this annual report that is the perfect ABM playbook, for us and maybe good for other companies. But basically what we said is, and I think, to take a step back for account-based marketing, you need to understand your addressable market. And you need to know who you can sell to today, because if that's probably the main crux of it, is if you don't know who your buyers are, who the potential customers you want to be working with, those efforts are going to be missed and they'll be spent on the wrong types of companies. You'll waste a lot of money, a lot of time and energy trying to chase the wrong account. So before anybody starts with any type of ABM initiative, and it could just be advertising, that's great. You may incorporate the business development team as part of that, which for new store, having business development within marketing, that helps us elevate some of the marketing campaigns that we're doing, because not only do we have the content, the advertising to help elevate and raise awareness and reach wide and far, but we also have the BDRs on the ground that are able to actually put this into the hands of the people that we want to see it. So what we did, for when we've had this annual report for 9 years is, and to take a step back, New Store is a retail technology company. We sell a mobile point of sale system to retail brands. We have on the back end an order management system and inventory management, which may not mean much for your audience. But if you go into any one of our customer stores, so like an Untuckit, Marine Layer, Faraday, Burton Snowboards, every one of their sales associates will have a mobile device on them. And they'll be able to pull up product information. They'll be able to pull up your customer profile, order history. They'll be able to order inventory that's not located in the store from a different location and then fulfill that order. So you have a really seamless shopping experience. And what we did a number of years ago, and it's grown every year, is we do basically a state of omnichannel, and we call it the Omnichannel Leadership Report. So each year we take a look at a cohort within our ICP. So this past year we looked at 700 brands, and then we conducted secret shopper survey as well as mobile and website audits to look at the different functionality that they offer their customers from a shopping experience perspective. And this is all from the customer's point of view. So you have 700 brands, roughly 100 plus data points on each one of those shopping experiences. Then we would analyze the data and pattern down what are the trends, what's in aggregate, how many brands are using mobile devices in store, how many are offering click and collect, or buy online, pickup in store. So we're looking at all these key trends. And oh, by the way, all of these pattern against what our solutions are. So we would produce this aggregate report with the big trends. We would break it out by region, which we did this year to make it a truly global experience. So we're able to say, okay, Spain actually is much further along in the mobile shopping and app experience than any other country that we looked at across the globe. So it gave us some good comparison and some analysis and different talking points. The real secret and the piece behind it is, of those 700 brands, we know exactly what they do or what they do not do. So not only are we producing this comprehensive and aggregate report that we would promote and push out across performance marketing, we'd host it on our website, we would have it printed at trade shows and as a handout material for more thought leadership pieces, which with the trends and the different things that we would see would give us fodder for PR related stuff. So we'd pitch it to the press, they would report on different trends that were happening and link back or click back to the report, which was really great. So it was a full on, everything within marketing. It touched every aspect of digital performance, content. Obviously, it was a piece of content, product. We were able to see different trends, and that would help inform back to what our product team and engineering team would want to work on, as well as PR and the rest of it. What it allowed us to do from an ABM perspective is not only get the data on the 700 accounts, but also give us all of the information around the shopping experiences they do or do not offer. So we may look at Nordstrom, who is one of the top 5 brands, annually. I think for the last 3 years, they were in the top 5. And we say, okay, they do a lot of the stuff that we do. They're a massive company. We probably don't need to spend a ton of effort trying to sell into them because the opportunities are going to be few and far in between. So what we would do is take a look at the brands that were in the report. Our BDRs would go and share the aggregate report, and then would start to pull some of the data points to gain some interest and intrigue. From there, we would build out an individual report for every 700 brands, or each of the 700 brands that were in the report. And then it was essentially a piece of discovery where we would go through and say, hey, we noticed that you guys don't offer clienteling, for example. Is this part of a business decision? Have you tried this before? Or is this something that you're looking to do? And then all of a sudden, as you're going through these different steps and these different data points, we're starting to uncover all of this information from these brands that we've been trying to talk to. But all we had to do was just create a piece of research and show them what their score was, how it compared to the rest of the industry, how it compared to their peers in that space. And then all of a sudden, we may or may not be off and running to the races. So, the entirety of the campaign is built around this single piece of research that had tentacles across everything, multiple different blog posts talking about trends, so there's SEO plays in there where we can, work on different keyword rankings and search optimization, all this stuff. And then also the actual translation to how does this generate revenue for us? And, year over year, the value of this report and the data that we can provide, and then what we were able to do and showcase, and then how that would help aid future discussions was incredibly helpful for us. And it opened a lot of doors that otherwise, we'd be guessing about. And so, that in and of itself, I mean, it's a massive lift. But I think, that in and of itself is a playbook that a lot of marketers, could take and apply to their own industry. Obviously, Secret Shoppers is very different. That's unique to retail, but you could find ways to start to replicate this. And even from a user, consumer survey, standpoint, there's a lot of ways that you could try and replicate something like this. But we had so much success with it, and it became, a real marquee piece of our annual marketing efforts. And then we had suitors and people that tried to replicate it and do it themselves. And so imitation is a form of flattery, and it was great to see. And it also forced us to rethink, how do we do this better? What do we want to do? So we were being pushed by, other competitors and partners that were trying to replicate some of what we were doing, which was fun. But to see it actually come to life, year over year, and, and a large investment, both in financial resources as well as internal ones, to then see the shelf life of it. And it would run for a year until the next one came out, and a lot of spinoffs from that in terms of even events. So we go to a different market. We bring in people there. We go through the trends related to the report, and then dig into some of the more specifics around, who here in this room is doing X, Y, and Z. And then, we're taking notes, and you can start to see how this would open a lot of doors and create a lot of insights for us as a team to see, all right, where do we go from here? And then the learnings from it, I mean, immense. I mentioned it, product insights and things that we want to, that could inform or help influence our roadmap. And even internally, we had a couple instances where brands would take the meeting with us, and they would say, okay, we kind of know exactly what we're doing, but we're interested to see what other companies are doing. And that was actually informing their own internal roadmaps. So not only were we able to help inform what, this company out of California with a bunch of different other sub-brands within it is able to do, and where they want to go with different companies within their portfolio. But also it was amazing for us to say, hey, this is a piece of content they're actually looking at annually to see where they need to go. And then for our sales team's purposes, they check a box and say, no, we're good. We don't need to sell to them. They're building it themselves.
I love it. And I think that you just shared like a masterclass. And I think there's so much to dive into. A couple points that I want to double click in, and we're already running out of time, and we'll keep this short for the audience. But as content marketers, we often focus on repurposing content. And you've mentioned blog posts and other mediums that you're repurposing, and just hats off. Like, building this massive report and study takes time and effort, and having a group spend that time and effort, it really does shine to have unique insights that you've earned, as opposed to having AI written content that you just kind of kick out there like everyone else. It really does stand out. But what I love is that you repurposed for specific businesses in your ABM pipeline. You wrote those reports specifically for them. How did that, I know you said you got meetings and things like that, but how did that start to take place? How did you get it in front of them? How did they engage with the content? How did that start building momentum for the team in general? And how do you actually really take the time to build 700 individual reports to send out to these groups?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some back end hacks with some different tools that we could use to aggregate, the data set and populate those reports. So they're all slideshows. It certainly has gotten better year over year, because there was a manual aspect to it where it would take roughly 45 minutes for us to manually build an individual report. And I think the first year we did it, I think we looked at 90 brands, and we created the individual reports for all 90. And then we actually printed and shipped those, via direct mail. So there is some merit still to direct mail in some ways. It's quite a bit harder now with people working remote and hybrid environments. but there were some ways that we got smart about the data sets and automating, some of that populated content for the individual reports. From a, how do we take some of those trends and evaluate what we want to create from additional content, whether it's, a thought leadership, from our CEO and different bylines that we secured or that were, purchased based on a paid media package. There's a lot of promotion to the report to get it out, and digital channels and content syndication was the best vehicle to do that. From a advertising perspective, we use 6 Sense. There's display advertising. The targeting within LinkedIn is really significant and strong. So there were two facets of it. One, it was, let's get this industry report out to every retailer in our space, regardless of whether they're a fit or not, because there's thought leadership and there's merit to reading this and seeing the state of omnichannel retail and what experiences brands are providing. But then there was a flip side where we would only target the 700 brands with specific messages about seeing their own individual data and results. So that, the digital channels, being able to advertise, content syndication, that helped us get us out to as many people as we could, and certainly getting into the right hands. And doing it annually, I think with, any content, you need consistency. So this was an annual report. We were doing it year over year. So we would have a lot of companies come back to us and ask around the same time we would publish it, we'd love to see our data. So there was some, aspect of kind of loyalty built in, if you want to call it that, where people knew what they were looking for and they were coming back to it. And our initial goal setting out was, we want to create an industry standard. We want this to be a pinnacle piece of content. And we really were looking at it from a research perspective. And that helped, pull any sales language out of it. We certainly had a point of view, but we tried to keep it as objective as possible. And I think that helped in terms of, people know when they're getting, something that's written with sales intent versus something that's more educationally based. So that line was very important to us to maintain. And even at times delivering the presentations to the brands, we still kept it from a research perspective. So the marketing team would sit in on those presentations often and present that data, as opposed to the sales team presenting it. So there were some things that, we decided intentionally we were going to do to maintain objectivity and keep it educational. And if the value of what we were showcasing and the discussion that, the sales team would contribute to helped move those discussions along, and there was some trust and a relationship built there, then we would naturally see those opportunities start to progress and become realized, which was the ultimate goal. And, any marketing team, you're creating materials to sell your product, but there's ways around it that you can kind of be clever and, can keep a bit of a secret, even if people know they're being sold to.
I love it. That's amazing. Well, Marcus, I have learned a ton. I love the playbook. I love how you're using content the right way. I think it's an example to everyone listening to this podcast. I am guessing there's going to be a lot of people that have a lot of questions about how this all works. How and where can they find you online and connect with you?
LinkedIn's probably the best way. So Marcus Lerobardier, you'll find me, and happy to answer DMs and notes. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. So happy to chat and connect with anyone.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Marcus, again, thanks for the time and insights today.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. This has been great. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.